What's goody? What's good, my people? It's been a minute. It's been a while, man. But I hope y'all been all right. I hope y'all been good. Hope y'all been just trying to find knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, man. You know, it's the Most High's will, first and foremost, forever and always. Today, I want to talk to you guys about the beast. Long story short, about the Western powers that be, that have their wicked and evil authority over the world. And I want to talk about what that is fundamentally and just bring some examples of what each face of the beast looks like. All right. And the main face that I'll be talking to you guys about today is finance. Not all of it, and we won't go too in depth, but I'll just talk about one of the most basic ways that the beast uses finance to oppress, uses finance to usurp, and just uses finance, to keep the people down, and to create a distance wealthfully, financially, between themselves and the goy, quote unquote, the goy. So yeah, rock with me, and this is a series that I want to share. This is a series that I want to get into. Today will be finance, but tomorrow will be another face of the beast. Could be education, could be entertainment, or whatever the Most High inspires me to do. So let's get into it. All right, so what is the beast? What is this beast that is so fearfully talked about in the book of Revelation or the end times? And that has also been spoken about by, prophets throughout the Bible. I believe it was Luke. No, I'm not sure. I should know this. I forgot the name of the apostle or the saint that wrote the book of Revelation. Daniel also had a vision about the book of Revelation. The Most High also talked to Jonah about, the beast, the Leviathan. Anyways, I digress. All right. What is the beast? So the beast is a powerful or the powerful oppressive system or forces that can come in the face of an empire, a ruling system, a nation. And what all of these oppressive forces conglomerate to do is to pretty much basically operate outside of God's moral order or outside of God's moral will for their own personal profit, for their own personal pleasure, or for the uprising of their own kingdom. Now, why does the beast do this? Because they know that they are not included in the Most High's covenant. The people that run the beast, the people that operate the beast, or that are the families that are at the forefront of the beast, they know that rulership, they know that being at the top, they cannot achieve nor attain nor acquire being at the top with God's will. So they can only be at the top using Satan. And I gotta criticize myself. I should bring scripture into this because I know that there's a verse about them having to go to Satan in order to reach the top, in order to maintain wealth and ownership. Because like I said, they know that they can't do it with God. And I'm working on that, I'm working on that. All right, so the beast, it uses several tools or several faces to maintain rulership. One being the financial system, usury, crediting system. Two, war. America spends the most money, trillions of dollars on its war front. They invest billions into war technologies, into firearms, into nuclear warheads, into bombs, tanks, I read somewhere that the U.S. spends more money on it not only spends more money on war than any other country, but it also spends more money on its war front or on its military progression than several other Western countries put together. You know, that's just one of its faces. Another face of the beast is its religious system. And I haven't done a video under the religious system as a beast yet, but I have done videos concerning Christmas, concerning the Roman Catholic system, concerning Easter. You know, one of the ways it uses religion to control people and to lie to people, making them think that it is God that they're worshiping, but it's actually not. Another another tool that they use is entertainment and media. You know, music, movies, celebrities, pornography, just to keep you down spiritually. You know, another tool that they use, technology. You know, these phones, movies, AI. You know, to perpetuate their power, to perpetuate their place on the chain of command. Another brainwashing system or brainwashing tool that they use is education. You know, the syllabi that they use in education, especially in elementary school and high school, those syllabi have been pondered and meditated and planned and scripted since before we were even born, since the 70s, 80s. You know, in order to lead into this one world order mindset. You know, they've been planning this since the days of President Nixon, you know, but I'll get to that some other time. That's neither here or there for now. All right, so let's get into the financial system or the credit system. So the beast uses this money profit machine, you know. Money is a weapon. It is food. It is energy. It is used against the people. It is used for the beast. You know, it is used to oppress. It is used to control. It is used to direct. It is used to herd or drive people here or there. You know, people emigrate or immigrate because of money. You know, people live in certain settlements, certain neighborhoods, certain communities because of money. You know, and that's power in itself. You know, controlling where the people go like that. And who controls the money? These rich Jewish families, pretty much, that control money funding, that control capital, that control money production. All right, so this beast, or the financial face of it, is a self-feeding entity. Banks and financial institutions create the money they lend out in the process of issuing loans, and they also create money out of nothing using these loans. So the way this works is that, let's say I go to a bank for money, right? And that bank gives me the money successfully, like my application is successful. When a bank hands out that loan, that is not their money that they're using. That is the people's money that they're using. You have a bank account. The next person has a bank account. The bank uses that money to give to me, you know? So they're not giving out their actual own money. But here's the catch. When I pay that money back, that money isn't going back to your account or going back to the next man's account. It's going to the bank, you know? So essentially, that money that you're giving back to them, that's out of nothing, you know? Especially including the interest that comes with that. That money is being created out of nothing. All right? And that's one of the ways that banks keep themselves alive in this society. So I want to get into how this very same system of usury or interest is being used to oppress people, you know, which is outside of God's moral order and outside of God's moral will. All right, so because of these interest rates, there's something called the debt trap, you know? And with this debt trap, it's a cycle of people being at the bottom of the economy, lower income family or households, or single parent households, having to loan out money just to keep up with rent, just to keep up with groceries, just to keep up with, living. Not even luxuriously living, not even, buying luxurious goods, although black people are the most involved, or they participate the most in luxury goods even though they can't afford it. But that's a story for another day. They People at the bottom, they have to keep getting loans to keep up with lifestyle, to keep up with life, to keep up with, all the costs of basic living. And because there's inflation, gas prices are crazy these days. Because everything is getting more and more expensive, they have to take out more and more loans. And they're not getting more and more money in order to pay back these higher loans. So what is it? It's a cycle of debt trap. It's a cycle of ongoing going debt, which just builds itself up, you know? And psychologically and spiritually, that takes a toll on you, bro. It's a burden to take to keep going. You have people snapping and crashing out, especially single mothers, crying out on social media about how hard it is to, maintain a living these days. So there's that, you know. But yeah, so this debt trap, once a person is stuck in debt and unable to pay back these loans, some financial institutions are legally allowed to repossess or to take back what these poor people own. And that could be their houses, their mortgages, or their cars, leaving them with less. And a lot of people end up homeless like this, unfortunately. And it's not just individual households. Europe has been doing this to Africa for decades, if not centuries. China has been doing it recently as well. What China does is they loan out billions of dollars or hundreds of millions to these African countries, and for collateral, you know, a promise in case that Africa's not able to repay these loans, they put up their ports, their coastlines, their infrastructure as capital, as collateral, mind you. And China, or these international finance corporations, or these international financial organizations, they lend out these billions or these millions to these countries, knowing very damn well that they will not be able to pay them back. So in turn, they seize their ports, their infrastructure, just for their benefit, which was the plan all along from the beginning. They knew that the country would not be able to pay them back. And that's just one of the many traps that we fall for, because at a certain point, it's not their fault. It's our fault for falling for the same things over and over again, or for lying to ourselves over and over again. But in honesty and truth, it's just the curse that the Most High has placed on us for not being able to obey, for not being able to heed to His commandments and to His laws, and this will keep happening always until we find God again, until we humble ourselves to the Most High's will, you know. But I'll touch on that later. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I wanted to speak about in this video. And I have some articles just to back these up. A few articles that I have here for you guys. So if you'll allow me, I'll get into them real quick. All right. Households being lured into the debt trap. All right. So how does the predatory debt trap threaten vulnerable families? All right, so payday loans and a closely related product, auto title loans, both heavily advertised and marketed, offer fast cash or quick approval while downplaying the fact that the terms of these loans carry a hefty price. Not only are these types of loans far more expensive than most other financial products, charging interest rates to 10 to 20 times higher than a typical credit card, but rather than serving as a lifeline, they are often a leafy life vest, drowning families in debt and sinking them into financial ruin. Payday loans involve giving a lender access to one's bank account for quick cash immediately and are typically repaid upon the next payday. Auto title loans involve handing over cash and spare set of keys in exchange for cash based on a percentage of the car's value. So pretty much, if they're not able to pay back the loans that they get out from these institutions, they have the right to take their car away. In both cases, borrowers often pay annual interest rates well above 300%. That's evil, bro. 300% usury. That is just downright evil. And odds are they will require another loan to pay off the first loan. You see, it's a debt cycle. Each year combined, these products take roughly $8 billion in interest and fees out of the pockets of families who are already struggling and communities, and put those billions of dollars into the hands of lenders. These costs are largely unnecessary. Better credit options may exist for borrowers, although they may not be available instantly. Non-credit options such as turning to families and friends, local religious congregations, or public assistance programs are less likely, and also are unlikely to cause the same level of financial harm. More than 90 million Americans currently live in the District of Columbia and the 14 states where these predatory products are banned under state interest rate caps. But the ubiquitousness of these lenders in vulnerable communities in Texas, they even outnumber grocery stores, wow, means that they are often to whom cash-strapped people turn. Payday and auto title lending, which came on the scene in a big way in the 90s, exists due to a combination of stagnant economic conditions and heavy lobbying by the industry. According to the Federal Reserve, roughly half of all Americans would be unable to come up with $400 without borrowing or selling something. Moreover, policymakers have failed to raise minimum wage in line with inflation over the past few decades. As a consequence, today's federal minimum wage of $7.25 per hour falls short of its inflation-adjusted high in 1968, which was well above $10 in 2016. Insufficient wages coupled with gaps in the social safety net make it more likely that too many families turn to high-cost credit to stay financially afloat. All right, I'm gonna just skip this part. It's a very long article, and I don't want to, take too much time here. All right, why predatory lending is so prevalent. Millions of families who take out payday and auto title loans face insufficient resources to make ends meet from month to month. Most of these loans are used to deal with recurring financial shortfalls rather than specific emergencies. Women and people of color are more likely to take out payday loans. 52% of payday loans borrowers are women. Wow. And African Americans are more than twice as likely to take out a loan relative to other demographic group. Wow. You see, it's the Most High's curse, man. The Most High's curse targets us specifically. This disparity is reflected in not only gaps in wages and wealth, but also the aggressive clustering of payday loan storefronts in African American as well as Latino neighborhoods. Changes in credit availability encouraged by lobbying. Changes in credit availability encouraged by lobbying. In addition to changing economic conditions, changes in the use of credit also contributed to the payday lending industry's growth. In the early 2000s, then bankruptcy Professor Elizabeth Warren, now the Democratic U.S. Senator representing Massachusetts, documented the rise in consumer credit as a way for families to keep up with declining real wages, with sometimes devastating consequences. Changes in legislation and regulation fostered this rise. The U.S. Supreme Court's 1978 Marquette National Bank of Minneapolis versus First of Omaha Service Corp. decision limited states' ability to cap interest rates for out-of-state banks, negating state interest rate caps, and was reinforced by subsequent legislation that emphasized the ability of national banks to set rates. As the industry grew in the 90s, payday lenders either exploited loopholes or encouraged enabling legislation that would allow exception or rate caps. All right, the real consequences for vulnerable families. Payday and auto loans often have devastating consequences for families. These loans often contribute to financial distress, including the risk of eviction or foreclosure. Many borrowers face other devastating concerns or outcomes, from repossessed cars that contribute to job loss to challenges in caring for children and maintaining family stability. Instead of being quickly paid off, the vast majority of payday and title loans result in another loan. 80% of Payday title loans will be rolled over or followed by an additional loan within just 2 weeks of the initial loan, as borrowers are unable to afford other essential expenses. The median payday loan borrower is in debt for more than 6 months, and 15% of new loans will be followed by a series of at least 10 additional loans. A typical borrower takes out 8 loans during 1 year, paying an average of $520 in interest on a $375 loan. In many cases, the cost may be much higher. In 2008, Naya Burks, a single mother living in St. Louis, had a $1,000 loan turn into an unanticipated $40,000 debt, as interest accrued rapidly at 240% when she could no longer keep up with payments, and the lender eventually sued her. Because payday and auto title lenders have access to either a customer's bank account or car, they take privileged position over all other expenses. Struggling borrowers are then left with little agency over personal finances and are unable to prioritize critical needs such as medicine, rent, and diapers. Payday loan borrowers who fail to keep up with payments, including roughly 1 in 4 online payday loan customers, may see their bank accounts close due to insufficient funds, making it more difficult and expensive for them to manage money in the future. And about 1 in 5 title loan borrowers have their vehicles seized or repossessed by the lender when they cannot keep up with the payments, and they may still owe debt in addition to repossession fees. Wow, they charge you for them taking your shit back. Even borrowers' traditional credit can be affected. Those with access to credit cards are nearly twice as likely to become delinquent on them if they take out a payday loan. This in turn leads to a ripple effect across family budgets. A 2011 study found that among those who earn an annual household income of $15,000 to $50,000, which comprises the vast majority of payday loan borrowers living near state where payday lending is legal, is associated with a 25% increase in the likelihood that these families will have trouble paying their mortgage, rent, or utilities. Ultimately, this may lead to eviction or foreclosure, with devastating consequences not only for affected families but also for their communities. Housing instability, a result of foreclosure and eviction, the primary cause of homelessness, compromises children of academic outcomes and both their physical and mental health. It also leads families into substantial housing arrangements such as unsafe neighborhoods or units with physical and safety hazards. Both time-consuming and thought-consuming, housing instability can also lead to job loss, leaving borrowers with a lifeline of steady income. Yeah, so the article goes on to talk about and illustrate the trickle down effect on the spirit, on the mind, and the heart regarding the stresses of having to burden these payments that most people are unable to pay back. I'm not going to get into that. You guys know how that goes. We see it daily on the news. Divorce rates, we know what it is. But what I will do is go on to the next article. Not necessarily talking about the debt trap, but also talking about how these institutions use finances to oppress people at the bottom and to keep them down, to keep them from opportunities to accumulate wealth for themselves, to pass on to the next generation. All right, black home mortgage borrowers pay more in NYC, new study finds. All right, 3 major banks charged black homeowners in New York City more interest on their mortgages than they did white borrowers, according to a new analysis of loan data by the New Economy Project, a racial and economic justice advocacy group. At Bank of America, Citibank, and JP Morgan Chase, white borrowers received interest rates of 3.77% on average compared to 4.13% for black borrowers between 2018 and 2023. I wonder how much that is now. Other non-white borrowers received an average interest rate of 3.83% during that time period. All right, so the discrepancies will result in black home buyers paying an estimated $31,200 more in interest on average over a 30-year mortgage compared to white buyers. The analysis crunched data lenders provide to comply with the Federal Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, which shows home lending activity for each census tracked by race of the borrower. Since the data does not include information about borrowers' credit scores, a key factor affecting interest rates, the analysis considered income and debt levels and found that disparities still existed, while white borrowers who earned less than $100,000 and had an average interest rate of about 3.93% compared to 4.2% for black borrowers who earned more than $100,000. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has pointed out that black and Hispanic borrowers overall have lower credit scores than white borrowers, which may help explain certain disparities in lending rates and decisions. Lower credit scores may lead to higher interest rates and rates of refinancing denial for borrowers of color. But some scholars and economists have argued the scoring ignores a history of discrimination that helps account for why people of color may have lower scores. Redlining by lenders in the 20th century prevented many non-white people from building home equity, a significant source of generational wealth that can help future generations make substantial down payments. Employment discrimination and banking deserts also play into financial disadvantages and a lack of resources for non-white people. For individuals navigating the home lending market, it can be hard to understand what they may be up against or compare their interest rates to others. A first-time homebuyer and management consultant, Vicky Morgan, said she had excellent credit and a great job. But when it was time to purchase the house in Cypress Hills, Brooklyn, she secured a 4.25% rate on a mortgage in 2020. The fact that non-white households aren't capturing the benefits of lower interest rates to the same extent as white households is definitely exacerbating inequality, said Christopher Girardi, a research economist at the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta and one of the paper's authors. Banks set their own mortgage interest rates, taking into consideration a borrower's income, debt, and credit score, but those collectively rise or fall with federal rates. In September, the Federal Reserve Bank slashed its interest rate by half a percentage point. More cuts may follow. The racial wealth gap could become even more yawning if homeowners do not or cannot refinance at the lower rates created by the recent federal rate cut. Prospective borrowers can keep an eye on mortgage rates using tools like Bank Rates History Tracker and Freddie Mac's survey. Some banks run programs designed to support interested non-white homebuyers through the lending process. JP Morgan Chase, for instance, employs advisors who work with underserved communities and offer mortgages with small down payments to prospective homeowners with limited assets. What we really need are new models and new tools that we should be testing in the market, Science said. And that pretty much is it for the article. So in closing, I just want to illustrate something to you guys, that what we're going through in terms of financial oppression and our inability to close the market gap, close the inequality gap, and to pass on generational wealth. That is just one of the curses that the Most High has bestowed upon us for disobeying. So I'm about to read Deuteronomy mainly chapter 28, a few verses which illustrate this. All right, so starting off with verse 15, just to open up this image that I'm trying to create. All right, so bear with me. Verse 15 says, "But if you will not obey the Lord your God by diligently observing all his commandments and decrees that I am commanding you today, then all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you." All right, let's move on to the next. Verse 28 and 29. All right, so these curses include the Lord will afflict you with madness, with blindness, and with confusion of mind. You shall grope about at noon as blind people grope in darkness. But you shall be unable to find your way, and you shall be continually abused and robbed without anyone to help. Let's go on. All right. Aliens residing among you shall ascend above you higher and higher, while you shall descend lower and lower. Financial desperation, financial disparity, financial inequality, wealth gap. They shall lend, listen, they shall lend to you, but you shall not lend to them. They shall be the head, and you shall be the tail. All these curses shall come upon you, pursuing and overtaking you until you are destroyed. Because you did not obey the Lord your God by observing the commandments and the decrees that he commands you, they shall be among you and your descendants as a sign and a portent forever. And that's pretty much it, man. A little warning from the Most High, that we are put in this position because of us. We did this to ourselves. And it is only us and our fear of God, truth and genuine fear of God, that will get us out. So to anyone listening to this, keep praying, keep fasting, keep trying to find God in every single thing that you do every day, man. Keep being grateful for what he's allowed you, and just keep trying to serve him to the best of your ability. Read scripture daily. You will gain wisdom. You will gain understanding. You will gain purpose. You will gain instruction. You will start knowing what to do better and how to do it better the more you read scripture. And in that way, we hearken closer to the Most High. So thank you for listening to me, guys, another day. I'm gone.